The space station floated in the darkness between stars like a giant metal flower. Its name was Nexus 7, and it was the biggest trading post in this part of the galaxy. Ships from dozens of different worlds came here every day to buy, sell, and make deals. The station had everything a space traveler might need: fuel, repairs, food, and places to sleep. Commander Jake Morrison walked through the busy corridors with his small team from Earth. They were the first humans to visit this place, and everyone stared at them. The aliens whispered to each other in languages Jake could not understand. Some pointed at the humans with claws, tentacles, or whatever they used for hands. A few aliens took pictures with devices that looked nothing like Earth cameras. Jake tried to stay calm. He knew this trip was important for Earth. His planet was new to space travel, and they needed friends out here among the stars. The other species in the galaxy were much older and more advanced. They had been traveling between worlds for thousands of years while humans were still learning to make fire. Lisa Grant walked beside Jake. She was his assistant, and the smartest person he knew. She carried a bag with supplies from Earth, including some food for emergencies. They had tried eating at the alien restaurants on the station, but nothing tasted right. Most of it made them sick. Behind them walked Dr. Paul Rivers and Lieutenant Amy Collins. They were both nervous but trying not to show it. This was their first time off Earth, too. The hallway led them past shops, selling strange items and restaurants with names they could not read. The air smelled different here, like metal and chemicals mixed with alien spices. Creatures of all shapes and sizes moved around them. Some walked on two legs like humans, others crawled or floated. A few were so strange that Jake could not tell which end was the head. They stopped at a food court area where several alien restaurants had tables set up. They had been walking for hours and needed to eat something. But every menu was written in alien languages. The pictures of food looked horrible. Lisa opened her bag and pulled out a simple lunch she had packed on their ship. It was just a peanut butter and jelly sandwich wrapped in plastic, but it smelled like home. She also had a bottle of water and some crackers. As soon as she unwrapped the sandwich, something changed. Aliens nearby stopped talking and turned to look at them. The smell of peanut butter and bread filled the air around their table. It was such a normal Earth smell that Lisa did not think anything special about it, but for the aliens, this smell was completely new. A tall figure approached their table. It had 6 arms and skin that looked like blue crystal. Its head was larger than a human head, with no visible nose but many small holes that seemed to breathe and smell at the same time. This was Zephyr. Though the humans did not know his name yet, Zephyr was famous on Nexus 7. He ran the best restaurant on the station, a place where only the richest aliens could afford to eat. His people, the Vorthok, had the best sense of taste in the known galaxy. They could detect flavors that other species could not even imagine. For over 300 years, Zephyr had been creating meals for kings, generals, and business leaders from across space. But he had never smelled anything like what came from Lisa's simple sandwich. Zephyr moved closer to their table. His crystal skin caught the light and threw little rainbows on the walls. Other aliens backed away from him because they knew who he was. Even the noise in the food court got quieter. Jake noticed the tall alien coming toward them and tensed up. He put his hand near his weapon, just in case. But the alien did not seem dangerous. It seemed curious. Lisa looked up at Zephyr and smiled. Bro. She was always friendly, even with scary-looking aliens. The creature pointed at her sandwich with one of its 6 arms and made some sounds that might have been words. I think he wants to know what you're eating, said Dr. Rivers quietly. Lisa held up the sandwich so Zephyr could see it better. She pointed to herself and then to the sandwich and said, Food. Human food. Zephyr made more sounds. His breathing. Holes opened and closed rapidly as he smelled the air around the sandwich. He seemed very excited about something. Maybe he's hungry, said Amy. Do you think it's safe to share food with aliens? Lisa thought for a moment. They were supposed to be making friends with alien species. Sharing food was one of the oldest ways humans made friends with strangers. She tore off a small piece of the sandwich and held it out. To Zephyr, the alien took the piece very carefully with 2 of his arms. He examined it closely, turning it over and smelling it from different angles. Other aliens in the food court stopped what they were doing to watch. Some of them had never seen their famous chef act this way before. Zefter brought the piece of sandwich to his mouth. His mouth was different from a human mouth, wider and with more teeth, but it worked the same way. Went down on the bread, peanut butter, and jelly. What happened next was something no one expected. Zefter's crystal skin began to glow brighter. His 6 arms trembled. His breathing holes opened wide. He made a sound that was part gasp and part song. He stood perfectly still for almost a minute while his brain processed what he was tasting. In his 300 years of cooking, Zefter had tasted foods from over 200 different worlds. He knew every spice, every cooking method, every combination of flavors that existed in the galaxy. He thought he had reached the limits of what food could be. He was wrong. The peanut butter was unlike anything in his experience. It was smooth and thick, with a rich flavor that came from roasting and grinding. The jelly was sweet, but also had the taste of real fruit, with tiny pieces that added texture. The bread was soft, but also had strength, made from grains that had been ground and mixed and baked in ways his people had never discovered. But it was not just the individual flavors that amazed him. It was how they worked together. The sweetness of the jelly balanced the richness of the peanut butter. The bread held everything together while adding its own gentle taste. It was simple, but it was also perfect. Zeftar looked at Lisa with new respect. Then he looked at the rest of the humans. If they could create something this wonderful from such simple ingredients, what else might they know about food that the galaxy had missed? He spoke in his own language, then tried to speak in the common galactic tongue that most species used for trading. His words came out broken and strange, but the humans understood. More, he said. Please, more human food. 3 weeks after tasting the sandwich, Zeftar made a decision that shocked the entire galaxy. He closed his famous restaurant on Nexus 7 and announced he was leaving to study human food on Earth. No alien had ever asked to live on the human homeworld before. The Galactic Council was angry. They sent messages to Earth saying that Zeftar was making a mistake. They warned that human food might be dangerous or addictive. But Zeftar did not care. He had spent every day since the sandwich thinking about those flavors. He needed to learn more. Commander Jake Morrison received special orders from Earth government. They told him to bring Zeftar home if the alien really wanted to come. Earth needed friends in space, and having a famous alien chef move to their planet would send a strong message to other species. The trip to Earth took 2 weeks in the human ship. Zeftar spent most of the time in the kitchen area watching Lisa Grant prepare simple meals for the crew. She showed him how to make scrambled eggs, how to toast bread, and how to brew coffee. Each new taste amazed him more than the last. When they arrived at Earth, news reporters were waiting at the spaceport. They had never seen an alien like Zeftar before. His crystal skin reflected the sunlight in beautiful patterns. Camera crews followed him as Jake Morrison led him through the busy streets of New York City. The plan was to introduce Zeftar to Earth foods slowly and carefully. But the alien chef had other ideas. He wanted to taste everything at once. Jake took him to a small restaurant in Little Italy where Maria Santos worked as head chef. Maria was a short woman with kind eyes and hands that moved like magic when she cooked. She had been making food for 40 years and thought she had seen everything, but she had never cooked for an alien before. When Zeftar walked into her kitchen, Maria was preparing lunch for the regular customers. She was making pasta sauce with tomatoes, garlic, and fresh basil. The smell filled the kitchen like a warm hug. Zeftar stopped walking. His breathing holes opened wide as he took in the smell. He had never experienced anything like it. On his home world, food was eaten for nutrition only. Flavor was considered a pleasant bonus, but not important. In the galaxy, most species thought the same way, but humans were different. They made food that smelled good before you even tasted it. Maria offered Zeftar a spoon of her sauce. When he tasted it, his crystal skin began to glow again. The tomatoes were sweet and sour at the same time. The garlic added a sharp taste that made everything else stronger. The basil brought a fresh green flavor that reminded him of growing things. "How do you make this?" he asked Maria, in his broken, galactic common language. Maria smiled and began to teach him. She showed him how to chop garlic very small so it would cook evenly. She explained that tomatoes needed to cook slowly to develop their sweetness. She let him smell the basil leaves and feel how soft they were. For the first time in his long life, Zefter was a student again. Over the next few weeks, Maria became his teacher. She took him to food markets where humans bought fresh ingredients. Zefter was amazed by the variety. On most worlds, food came in packages from factories. But humans still grew things in dirt and picked them when they were ready to eat. He learned about cheese, which was made by letting milk sit with special bacteria until it became solid and developed strong flavors. He discovered bread that was made with wild yeast that humans caught from the air itself. He tasted wine that was made from grapes that had been crushed and left to ferment for years. But the biggest surprise was learning why humans cooked the way they did. One evening, Rhea invited Zefter to her family dinner, so her children and grandchildren came to her small apartment every Sunday to eat together and talk about their week. They cooked together, laughed together, and shared food from the same plates. Zefter watched in wonder as 3 generations of humans used food to show love for each other. The grandmother made soup the way her own mother had taught her. The children helped roll meatballs with their small hands. Everyone tasted everything and told stories about recipes they remembered. This was completely new to Zefter. In his culture, eating was a private activity. Each person ate alone, in silence, thinking only about nutrition. But humans turned eating into a celebration. Maria noticed his confusion and sat down next to him. She tried to explain in simple words that he could understand. "Food is love," she said, pointing to her heart and then to the plates of food on the table. "When I cook for my family, I put my love into the food. They taste my love when they eat." Zefter thought about this for a long time. Love was not an ingredient he could measure or control. It was not something he could buy at a market. Somehow, humans had learned to put it into their food. Word began to spread through alien communication networks about the amazing things happening on Earth. Other aliens started asking questions about human food. Some tried to get recipes from their governments. But the Galactic Council had classified all information about Earth. Cooking as restricted, this only made aliens more curious. Space pilots, who had visited Earth, began selling small amounts of human spices and ingredients on the black market. A tiny bag of black pepper could buy a new spaceship. A bottle of vanilla extract was worth more than gold. The Galactic Council became worried. They sent official messages to Earth demanding that humans stop sharing their food knowledge with other species. They claimed that human cuisine was causing unrest and making aliens dissatisfied with their traditional foods. Earth's government ignored these messages. Meanwhile, Zefter continued learning from Maria and other human chefs. He discovered that every region of Earth had its own way of cooking. People in Asia used different spices than people in Europe. Africans had techniques that Americans had never heard of. Every culture had found different ways to make food taste good. This diversity amazed him. Most alien worlds had only 1 or 2 ways of preparing food. But humans had thousands of different cooking traditions, all on the same planet. By the end of his 2nd month on Earth, Zefter had learned to make pasta, bake bread, grill meat, and prepare dozens of different sauces. But more importantly, he had learned that human cooking was not just about making food taste good. It was about bringing people together, showing care for others, creating happiness. He realized that humans had discovered something that the rest of the galaxy had missed for thousands of years. The Galactic Council met in emergency session for the first time in 50 years. Representatives from 12 major alien species sat around a curved table made of black stone. The room was quiet except for the soft humming of translation devices. Council. Leader Vrextel, a massive creature with thick gray skin and small red eyes, spoke first. His voice was deep and angry. "Humans had become a problem," he said. "Their food is spreading dangerous ideas across the galaxy. Citizens on 17 worlds are demanding access to human recipes. Some are refusing to eat their traditional Foods. The other council members nodded in agreement. Reports had been coming in for weeks about unrest on different planets. Workers were going on strike because they wanted better food in their cafeterias. Families were arguing because some members had tasted human spices and found their old meals boring. "We must stop this before it gets worse," said Councilmember Thix, whose people had evolved to eat only liquid nutrients. Food should provide energy, nothing more. If the humans are teaching other species to want unnecessary pleasures. On Earth, Zefter was unaware of the council meeting. He was busy in his new restaurant in Manhattan, teaching a group of alien visitors how to make pizza. Word had spread quietly through space pilot networks about his location, and aliens were coming to Earth in secret to taste human food. The restaurant was small but always full. Zefter had learned to adapt human recipes for different alien body types. Some species could not eat dairy products, so he made cheese from plant milk. Others could not handle spicy food, so he created milder versions of hot sauces. But the most important thing he taught them was not about ingredients or cooking methods. He taught them about the human idea that food should bring joy, Captain. Flux of the trading ship Meridian was one of Zefter's regular customers. His people, the Zentari, had eaten the same 3 types of food pellets for over 1,000 years. The pellets provided all necessary nutrition and kept them healthy. But after tasting Zefter's chocolate chip cookies, Captain Flux could not go back to eating pellets. The sweetness of the chocolate, the texture of the cookie, the way it made him feel happy, these were completely new experiences for him. When Captain Flux returned to his home planet, he tried to describe cookies to his family. They did not believe him. Sweet food that made you feel good? It sounded impossible. So Captain Flux brought some cookies on his next trip home. He shared them with his wife and children. Soon, his entire neighborhood was asking where they could get more of these amazing human treats. The same thing was happening on worlds across the galaxy. Aliens who had tasted human food could not stop thinking about it. They began to question why their own food was so boring. They started to demand better meals from their governments. The Galactic Council decided to take action. They passed Emergency Law 4471, which banned all trade with Earth. Any alien caught bringing human food or recipes to their home world would be arrested. Spaceships traveling to Earth would be stopped and searched, but the law only made things worse. Aliens who had never cared about food before suddenly wanted to know what they were missing. Black market prices for human spices went even higher. A single cinnamon stick could buy a house. Zefter learned about the trade ban when 3 of his regular customers were arrested at the space station near Earth. He was angry and sad, but not surprised. He had known this day would come. That evening, he sat in his restaurant with Maria Santos and Jake Morrison. They were trying to decide what to do next. "Maybe we should be more careful," said Jake. "We don't want to cause a war over food." Maria shook her head. "Food is not just food," she said. "It's about freedom. These aliens have the right to choose what they eat and how they live." Zefter agreed with Maria. In his months on Earth, he had learned that humans believed in something called individual choice. People should be free to make their own decisions about their lives, including what they ate. This idea was revolutionary in galactic society. Most alien governments controlled every aspect of their citizens' lives, including their food. Citizens ate what they were told to eat when they were told to eat it. Zefter made a decision that would change everything. He would broadcast cooking shows to the entire galaxy, using the same emergency communication system that governments used for important announcements. With help from human engineers, he set up a powerful transmitter in his restaurant. Every week, he would teach aliens across space how to make simple human foods using ingredients they could find on their own worlds. His first broadcast reached over 3 billion aliens on 47 different planets. He showed them how to make bread using any type of grain, flour, and how to create simple spices by drying local plants. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Aliens on every world began experimenting with food for the first time in their history. They discovered that cooking could be creative and fun. They learned that meals could be celebrations instead of just fuel for their bodies. Governments tried to jam Zefter's broadcasts, but human engineers kept changing the signal. They moved from one frequency to another, always staying one step ahead of the authorities. The situation reached a crisis point when soldiers on 12 different worlds refused to eat their military rations. They had learned to make better food for themselves and would not go back to the old way. Council leader Vrexthal called for military action against Earth. The humans are destroying the order of civilized society, he declared. We must stop them before they corrupt every species in the galaxy. A fleet of warships began moving toward the solar system. But something unexpected happened on the way. The ship's crews had been watching Zeftor's cooking shows in secret. When they opened their emergency food supplies, they found that some crew members had hidden human spices inside. The smell of cinnamon and vanilla filled the ship's air systems. Soldiers who had never tasted anything but regulation protein cubes suddenly discovered what food could really be like. By the time the fleet reached Earth's solar system, half the ships had mutinied. The crews were demanding that their governments negotiate with Earth instead of attacking it. The Great Food War had begun, and it was being fought with recipes instead of weapons. The neutral planet Kepler Prime had never seen so many spaceships in its orbit. Vessels from 50 different worlds crowded around the small world that served as a meeting place for galactic disputes. The planet's surface was mostly desert, but it had one large city built specifically for important negotiations. Council leader Vrexthal stood in the center of the Grand Assembly Hall, his gray skin darker than usual with anger. Around him sat representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Some supported the ban on human food, but many others had come to argue against it. The humans sat in a small section near the back. Jake Morrison wore his best uniform, but he felt nervous. Next to him sat Zefter, whose crystal skin caught the light from the hall's windows. Maria Santos had also come, carrying a large bag of cooking supplies. We are here to settle this matter once and for all, announced Vrexthal. The humans have disrupted galactic order with their dangerous food practices. We must decide whether to continue the trade ban or take stronger action. But Representative Corinth of the Helix Nebula stood up to speak. Her people were tall and thin with silver skin that shimmered when they moved. My citizens are refusing to work, she said. They've tasted human chocolate, and now they say our traditional food tastes like metal. Production on our manufacturing worlds has dropped by 60%. We cannot continue the ban. Similar complaints came from other representatives. The Arcturus Mining Guild reported that workers were going on strike. Vega Transport Union said their pilots were demanding better food or they would stop flying. Cargo ships Captain Flux, who had been invited to speak for the independent traders, stood up and addressed the council. I have eaten human cookies, he said simply. They made me happy in a way I had never experienced before. My wife and children deserve to feel that happiness too. Why should governments decide what we can and cannot eat? Vrexthal's red eyes grew brighter with anger. 'Cause pleasure leads to chaos, he replied. For 10,000 years, galactic civilization has been stable because citizens focused on duty, not pleasure. If aliens start wanting enjoyable food, they will start wanting other unnecessary things. Society will collapse. That was when Zefter stood up. The hall became quiet. Everyone knew who he was and why he was there. Request the right of challenge, he said in his careful galactic common language. The right of challenge was an old galactic law, and two sides could not agree. On something important, they could settle the matter through competition instead of war. The winner would get to decide the issue for everyone. Vrexthal thought for a moment. He was confident that galactic civilization was superior to human culture in every way. A cooking contest would prove this point to everyone. I accept your challenge, he said, but the terms will be fair. You may cook with human methods, but we will also choose our finest chefs to represent traditional galactic cuisine. The judges will be selected from neutral species who have never tasted human food. The contest was scheduled for the next day. News of the challenge spread across the galaxy faster than light. Billions of aliens watched on their viewing screens. As the greatest cooking competition in history was prepared, the contest area was set up in Kepler Prime's largest stadium. 2 kitchen areas were built, one for the galactic chefs and one for the human team. Zefter would cook alongside Maria Santos and a chef named Bobby Chen, who had volunteered to help represent Earth. The Galactic team consisted of 5 chefs from different worlds. They were all experts in traditional cooking methods that had been used for thousands of years. Their leader was Chef Morpheus of the Crystal Gardens, who was famous for creating perfectly balanced nutrient combinations. The rules were simple. Each team would prepare a complete meal using ingredients available on Kepler Prime. The judges would taste both meals and decide which was better. The winning side would determine galactic food policy for the next century. When the contest began, the galactic chefs worked with scientific precision. They measured every ingredient exactly and followed recipes that had been perfected over many generations. Their food was technically perfect and provided ideal nutrition. But Zefter, Maria, and Bobby worked differently. They tasted everything. As they cooked and adjusted flavors based on what they thought would taste good, they talked to each other and shared ideas. They even laughed while they worked. Maria made pasta with a sauce that combined tomatoes from 3 different Kepler Prime regions. Bobby created a fusion dish that mixed Earth spice techniques with local vegetables that had never been cooked before. Zeftar prepared what he called Galaxy Gumbo, a soup that included ingredients from 12 different worlds, all brought together with cooking methods he had learned from humans. The most important difference was not in what they cooked, but in how they cooked it. The galactic chefs worked alone and in silence. The human team worked together, sharing tasks and helping each other. When the cooking time ended, the judges approached the 2 tables. There were 5 judges from species that had never encountered human food before. They tasted the galactic meal first. The traditional dishes were exactly what they expected. The flavors were familiar and the nutrition was perfect. The food accomplished its purpose of providing energy for the body. Then they tasted the human team's meal. The first judge, a creature with multiple mouths, stopped chewing and stared at the food in surprise. The second judge made a sound that might have been pleasure. The third judge immediately asked for a second helping. The Galaxy Gumbo was unlike anything they had ever experienced. It had layers of flavor that changed as they chewed. Sweet, salty, spicy, and sour tastes mixed together in ways that made them want to keep eating. But more than that, the food made them feel good in a way that went beyond just filling their stomachs. When the judges announced their decision, there was no surprise. The human team had won by unanimous vote. But the real victory came when Vrextel himself asked to taste the Galaxy Gumbo. As the flavors hit his tongue, his entire understanding of food changed. For the first time in his long life, he realized that eating could be about more than just survival. The trade ban was lifted immediately. Earth became the official center for galactic culinary education. Zefter opened a cooking school where chefs from hundreds of worlds came to learn human techniques. Most importantly, the contest had proven that humans brought something special to the galaxy. The idea that life should include joy, not just duty. Years later, Jake Morrison often told the story of how a simple peanut butter sandwich had changed the course of galactic history. It reminded everyone that sometimes the smallest acts of sharing could have the biggest results.